5. That's right. It's week 5 of the NFL season already. We are amped. We are rocking. We are ready to go. FFL Fantasy Football Live. We're going to take you all the way up to kickoff with their latest, greatest news that you need. And, I just feel the joy in my heart. Got Matt Harmon, got Chris Allen, got Justin Boone. I'm Jason Fitz. We're going to be with you for 90 minutes. Harmon, how lucky are we that we get a second straight week of Carson Wentz in a solo window for the football worlds to get to watch Vikings and Browns? I can feel the joy coming off of you, brother.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the show about, just we got a little bit of a week 5 energy here today. And frankly, I'm going to completely blame that on Carson Wentz. I mean, I'm all in on getting up early and having a football game on pretty much right away. Depending on what time you actually get out of bed, depending on which coast you live on. But let's just maybe get somebody other than Carson Wentz as the quarterback in these games. Not that the Browns are helping all that much on their end of it.
Well, look, there's still opportunity if you're a degenerate like me and you're hammered the under. There's still opportunity for hope this morning. Chris, how we feeling, buddy? We feeling good this morning?
I mean, I'm feeling good, and I completely echo Harmon's sentiments. But I will say, I know it's week 5, but let's fast forward a few months to, let's say, end of December, early January. And I'm sure folks will be at least clamoring for a Dylan Gabriel-Carson Wentz matchup once all the football action starts to die down. So I get it. It's week 5. We're trying to get through these bye weeks and injuries and all of that. Let's try and pick up the energy, fellas. I mean, we've only got so many more weeks of this stuff. I know it's 12, but still, come on, guys. I mean, we're going to be talking about this stuff in February and March. Like, you would love to see Dylan Gabriel versus Carson Wentz in about the next 4 to 5 months.
True. Oh, yeah, you're right. In June, Boone, we'll all be sitting back being like, where's Dylan Gabriel? I know. I'll get you guys updated on the game. Calm down. Boone, we feeling good?
Absolutely. And I think I have a great example. I grew up in Niagara Falls, and after a while, you don't even think the falls are special. You drive down there, you take a look at them, you're like, oh, that thing, who cares? And then everyone comes to visit and says, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. That's what this kind of game is like, right? Right now, we're looking at it going, this is terrible. But I totally agree with Chris. If this was March, we would be dying for a game like this. So we'll enjoy it while we can.
Let's get the score up for you. Yes, there has actually been scoring 14-10. I'm starting to get a little puckered up, too, because the Browns are driving at this point. 37.5 was an ugly low number. So I need field goals, people. I need field goals for my own personal interest. We'll keep you updated. You see some of the stats there. Jordan Mason with the catch, 38 yards, touchdown. Quinshon Judkins with the catch and 96 yards in this. And, again, they are driving right now. Dylan Gabriel, they've done a nice job of getting some play action for him, getting him some nice, quick, easy throws that he's been able to make. Been a smart game plan. 14-10 is your score right now. We'll keep you updated on what we have as it comes down. Now, you guys can get involved. You know the drill. You can comment in the YouTube. We're chatting there. We're thanking everybody that takes the time to watch us there. You can also get us with the hashtag AskFFL on Twitter X to send in your last-second comments. We're 90 minutes away, so let's get to the actives and inactives because that's what you guys are losing sleep over. My day got a lot worse this morning. Brock Bowers inactive for my beloved Raiders. Not a huge stock there over the last couple of days. Tyrone Tracy inactive. Jawan Johnson active. Lamar Jackson, as expected, inactive. All right, so let's real quick here look at Bowers. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go on there. Bucky Irving, Mike Evans out. Calvin Ridley also questionable. So that's kind of your active slate so far. Harmon, my level of panic over Brock Bowers being inactive should be?
I mean, for your Raiders, it's definitely not great. I mean, we haven't seen the best of Bowers since week 1. It's been a minute here, and it's one of those injuries that you almost kind of just wish that the team had stepped in early and said, hey, let's just sit you out for a couple weeks. Let's not make it worse, because it feels like that's what's happened here. He's played a couple of games, has obviously not looked like himself if you're watching these Raiders games. It's like, where is Brock Bowers from last year? He's playing through what we now know is a PCL injury. Like, he's not going to be the same guy. These are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are real human beings dealing with something, and he is a guy that clearly has not been himself. You almost just wish that the team had stepped in and sat him down for a little bit, because now it feels like they enter this very nebulous territory where they want to be this 12 personnel team. Michael Mayer's also not playing in this game, so I'm not quite a Raiders offense that I already was kind of raising an eyebrow at in the passing game anyways. I'm really not quite sure what they're going to look like this week.
Yeah, and fantasy owners with Brock, keep an eye on that PCL injury. It can be anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks if it's mild, up to 6 months if it's severe. So this could impact everybody that drafted Brock Bowers early. Let's get to what to watch in Week 5. The biggest storylines out there. Justin Boone, king of the Flutie Flakes. Boone, what do you got for us? What you got your eyes on?
I mean, can Derrick Henry carry this Ravens offense? They got injuries across the board. It's not just Lamar being out, but we got a ton of guys on defense who are out. This is not the same team that we saw go toe-to-toe with my Bills in week 1. They are falling apart right now, and they're going to have to try to rely on Henry. And I'm not sure that Henry is the guy that he used to be. I don't know that he's going to be able to carry this thing without Lamar out there. I think he's been able to keep it going fantasy-wise by having that threat of Lamar running. And now in this game, they're actually underdogs in this one to the Texans, which is kind of sad. And if they fall behind, we've seen what happens to Henry. He gets game scripted out. We see Justice Hill get involved. Keaton Mitchell is going to be active today. So we're going to see other guys get involved in this offense. And let's hope that the Ravens can keep this one close, because if they can't, Henry falls down into like that RB2 range for fantasy. And he's kind of like almost a touchdown or bust guy.
That would be staggering for that offense. Chris, what do you got? What you got as your what to watch in week 5?
I'm going to be watching for some of the unsung heroes that we kind of cast off as quarterbacks that we didn't have too much excitement for coming into 2025. And 3 guys that I'm thinking about: Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, and Spencer Rattler. And for Justin Fields right now, through 2 starts, he's first in passing success rate. And it's not just the fact that Justin Fields has been playing well, but he's also been able to float the value of one Garrett Wilson that folks were drafting in some of those early rounds just based off of volume. And so seeing him Fields specifically being able to operate not just as a rusher, but as a passer of the football in this offense coordinated by Tanner Engstrom coming over from Detroit, it's good to see that some of the concerns that we had for Fields haven't really realized themselves yet. I know it's been something of a roller coaster, but when we've seen Fields start and end the game, it's been solid for him and also for the pass catchers attached to him. Even Mason Taylor, who should be a hot pickup for this week, but also Sam Darnold moving over from the Vikings over to Seattle. Seattle's offensive line has been something of a concern, and we know those splits whenever pressure gets to Sam Darnold, but now he's been quarterback 16, 10, and quarterback 14 over his last 3, and it's not just about Darnold, but could we see JSN really take that leap without DK Metcalf? And we've seen that so far. We've also seen Cooper Kupp step up as a fairly decent wide receiver too. So again, Seattle being 7th in play action rate under Clint Kubiak, that improvement has him pulling those levers have actually pushed JSN into the area that we expected, drafting him in the early rounds. And then finally, Spencer Rattler. I'm not advocating for starting Spencer Rattler, but again, we were drafting Chris Olave, looking to Rashid Shaheed, and also Alvin Kamara. And Spencer Rattler, for all of his, let's say, flaws as a passer, still been able to operate well behind the Saints offensive line with Kellen Moore pulling the strings. And also Spencer Rattler, pretty solid scrambler as well. I mean, top 5 in terms of EPA generated when he's running. So keeping the offense moving, we expected to have a lot of these pass catchers and skill players attached to him, falling back with Rattler under center. But really, it's been Rattler kind of pushing the envelope forward. So again, those are 3 guys that I'll be watching out for here in week 5.
By the way, I want to get you updated. We have a touchdown. The Browns have thrown a touchdown to Njoku. So Njoku gets some points there, and my hammer the under philosophy is already taking a beating. We're barely into this thing. All right, what to watch in week 5? I'll give you my storyline, and yeah, it involves my beloved Raiders, but on the other side of the football. Look out for the opportunities for the Colts to actually be able to throw the football in this game. Now, this is where everybody will remind you that obviously Jonathan Taylor's having a great year, and he is. And the Raiders have been pretty decent against the run. But the one time that they've faced a team that actually tried to run against them, that team was Washington. That team had success. The Raiders are going to have to allocate extra resources to slow Jonathan Taylor down, which is going to be virtually impossible. And when they do that, they won't be able to mask the back end of their defense. That's why, especially on a team that lacks the second-level players to slow down some of these receiver options, I think there's actually going to be sneaky opportunities for big plays and big numbers. Even without Alec Pierce in this game, that won't matter. Ty Ward is going to be a matchup nightmare for the second level of the Raiders defense. I think the Colts offense is set to have some big explosives in this game. And even though we're rightfully so obsessed with what Jonathan Taylor does, just trying to take Jonathan Taylor out of this game is going to create one-on-one matchups that the Colts will feast on. It's going to be a big day for the Colts offense. Harmon, give me what you got your eyes on for. What are you taking a look at for in week 5?
I think we might see a top 5 week incoming for Garrett Wilson, who Chris was talking about earlier. It honestly, it doesn't even matter really who the quarterback is. And this was sort of my thought on being optimistic about Wilson in the offseason was it's not so much the change in quarterback here. It's actually the change in the offensive role that he has been given that I think is the more important variable here for Wilson having what's been a quietly really strong season so far this year. His target rate in terms of target share of the offense, 36.5% is a career high. He has a career low 8.2 air yards per target. And he has run 36.4% of his snaps from the slot, which is also a career high. His slot work has been trending down each of the previous 3 seasons, from his rookie season to year 2 to year 3. And this is a guy who told me to my face after his rookie season, I love running from the slot. I want to run more routes from the slot. I want to run these deep over routes, in breakers, stuff like that. And yet, that is the exact opposite of the role that the coaching staff previously had him in. He was on a lot more vertical routes, goes, curls, things that broke statically back to the quarterback because that's what Aaron Rodgers likes. Well, now we're seeing him run the career low rate of go routes. We're seeing him run more in breakers. And we've obviously seen the results, which has been super promising so far. And now he gets this kingmaker Cowboys defense here in week number 5. I think Wilson's having a fantastic season. I think he puts yet another exclamation point on it this week.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys defense is the ultimate slump buster in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. Boone, you're a resident rankings expert. You got to get your final tweaks in before kickoff. So he gets to get away for us for a second. He's going to get all of that for us shortly. So now let's get to some last-minute pickups. People that are actually still out there that you have a chance you can go grab them right now. And we're looking at their under 50% roster that can still be added. So, Chris, when I say last-minute pickup, you, good sir, say?
I say Darius Slayton. From wide receiver for the Giants, and with the injury to Malik Neighbors, hopefully we get to see him at some point in 2026 with his impending surgeries. But Darius Slayton should be the next man up, or at least part of the plan from Brian Daboll to fill in some of that void from Neighbors. Now, we know how Slayton has been deployed in the past. He's been typically their perimeter downfield threat. Last week alone, from Jackson Dart, Slayton had 80% of the routes, also 61% of the air yards, and that was after Neighbors went down. But on the plus side, with Dart throwing the ball, 75% catchable target rate. So that is something where some of those successes, some of those prayer yards could actually be air yards converted into receiving yards that fantasy managers need. And of course, going up against the Saints defense, they're allowing the 3rd most yards per play to wide receivers so far through 4 weeks. While it might be something of a Hail Mary toss-up, given how Slayton is used with this matchup and also the uptick in opportunity, Slayton could be a guy that you plug into your wide receiver 3 flex type of spot for week 5.
All right, Matt, who do you have as a last-minute pickup out there?
Fitz, this is exactly what we were talking about pre-show, where nothing juices me up more than throwing some kind of, quote, random player into a starting spot. And I think that Dolphins wide receiver Malik Washington is not a random player, yet most people might view him that way because he's not heavily rostered. He's not heavily started right now. But I think this guy is a legitimately really good, promising football player. Loved him as a prospect coming out of UVA. He runs those in breakers, the horizontal routes, some quick outs that this offense features. That is a staple of this offense, which is why I was excited to see him get drafted here, even if he's way too late in the draft due to a neck injury in the college prospect process. So to me, this is a talented football player who now has a new opportunity here. I do think it's going to be interesting to track his usage here this week, because in the first game, the half last week without Tyreek Hill, he got hurt early 3rd quarter. We saw that Nick Westbrook-Ikine actually stepped up and number 2 wide receiver to Jalen Waddle in terms of routes run. But let's see what this looks like now that we have a week of practice here to get the offense to how we want it to look now that Tyreek Hill's not going to be in the mix. And he gets a Panthers defense that's pretty problematic in zone coverage, and beating zone coverage was one of Malik Washington's specialties as a college prospect.
All right, gentlemen, let's see what everybody's asking about. We're going to have a little fun and check the chats. Got a lot of questions coming in there, so we'll see if we can help some people out that are in the chat right now. Zach Pulowski came in first and said, starting Ladd with zero expectation once again. There's that positive week 5 energy. Chris, what do you got for us? He says, starting Ladd, zero expectations once again. What do you think?
I mean, if there's zero expectations, then the bar for actually being successful is really low, and I'll take that. I really like that. But no, I would say the optimism for Ladd McConkey is that for this matchup, Washington's secondary has been one to target from the interior, and specifically their slot corner, Sandra Still, has been injured throughout this week. I think he had at least one DNP or something along those lines. So if there's going to be a way that Justin Herbert should be able to keep the offense moving, he's going to be under duress quite often with Washington's defensive front being an issue for the Chargers offensive line. I would say McConkey, since he primarily plays from the slot, this could be the week that we finally get something out of McConkey.
Here's to hope. All right, Max Smith with the next question. Chris Godwin, Travis Hunter, or Malik Washington in a half PPR? What do you think, Harmon?
Jeez, God. Don't feel super confident in any of these options right now. I think you got to go with Chris Godwin just because he's coming off of a week where he was a full-time role player, was out there on over 90% of the routes. He got 10 targets. Now, I didn't love the way he looked, but it's first game back off a serious injury. I think you can kind of excuse that. And I'm interested to see if he plays more slot this week against the Seattle defense that is tough to wide receivers. But again, I want to see him in that slot role because that's where he's been most productive. So I think of these options, he's still your best bet, even if I'm a little tepid on the upside this week.
All right, let's get the next question from Chris to Chris. Chris Williams says, hashtag AskFFL, Hunter or Allen, WRT. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, it has to be Keenan Allen. We can't be doing this Travis Hunter thing week in and week out. I know that we want to see something from the rookie in this offense, especially where he's drafted at. But Keenan Allen, so far, his target share second on the team right behind Quentin Johnston. And so far, like I was talking earlier about Ladd McConkey, if there's going to be a way they beat the Commanders defense through the slot, that's where Keenan Allen primarily operates. So I would say Keenan Allen has to be the guy over Travis Hunter in week 5.
Keep the questions coming. Hashtag AskFFL is how you get in on the conversation. Plus, I see you over here in the chat. We'll get a bunch of those in throughout the course of the show. But coming up next, it's the bye week already, which means it's never too early to grab a guitar and play some bye week blues. We'll go through some of them next for you on Fantasy Football Live. We have got football happening right now in London as we have the Browns taking on the Vikings in a matchup that we've all got eyes on. 17-14 is our score right now. The Browns, remember, Njoku with that last touchdown. The Browns just got the ball, and they are roughly 99 yards away from being able to do any damage. So let's see what that means as they try and mount a large, long drive at the end of the third quarter. We'll keep you updated on it, but in the meantime, we've got fantasy feasts to have, and it is time to take it one of the biggest matchups of the weekend, the Commanders at the Chargers. Now, the Chargers here -3, the over-under 47 on this one. Jaden is back at quarterback. So fantasy feast, Chris, what have your eyes on for this one?
So for this one, I'm looking at Justin Herbert, and I'm just going to put my tinfoil hat on real quick and say, is this going to be the game where we see the Chargers pass less? Over the past couple of weeks, Justin Herbert has been under pressure on over 45% of his dropbacks. Quarterback hits, fellas, 14 in week 3, 12 hits just this past week in week 4. There's no way that they're going to continue to have him operate behind that offensive line that's now going to be without Joe Alt here in week 5. So my question is it going to be more of Omarion Hampton against this Commanders defensive front? I mean, yes, I was just talking earlier about the optimism for somebody like a Ladd McConkey or a Keenan Allen, but do they try and switch things up, ask for more 12 personnel, more max protects to keep Justin Herbert upright? Because this is the face of the franchise, fellas. So I do have some general concerns about this passing game, and this would benefit a guy like Omarion Hampton if they try and feature the running game versus the passing game moving forward.
You have concerns, but my friend, that's why I see it as a beautiful, wonderful thing for anybody that actually has the Commanders defense playing. Look, I know we don't talk a lot about our defense. It doesn't do much good. But in this game particularly, there's going to be opportunity. I'm not sure, because Harmon has said every week, and I think you're right, that this has become the identity of this team has become so much about passing. But the way that they're shuffling the offensive line is just a disruptor, right? So now what you've got is a head coach in Dan Quinn that I think is going to be able to put a lot up front at the Chargers. I think this is an opportunity for the Commanders defense to feast again against an offensive line that's just a shell of itself. And frankly, as much as we talk about everything else in football, that's, I think, the biggest concern that the Chargers are going to have to figure out moving forward. Without their offensive line playing at a line that can, at a level, I should say, that can actually protect their offense, I wonder what it's going to look like. I think this is a real opportunity for the Commanders to feast. Look at me turning it into a positive. Harmon, what do you got for me?
Yeah, I'll talk about the team on the other side here. The Washington Commanders offense, all eyes will be on Jaden Daniels' return, but I want to talk about the backfield here for Washington, which is no question split 3 ways. In weeks 3 and 4, Chris Rodriguez leads the way with 39% of the snaps. Everybody's favorite running back, Bill Krosky-Merritt, 36.2%, and passing down specialist Jeremy McNichols, 29.5%. So the reality is, as long as it stays like that in terms of the opportunities to get on the field, you really just can't play any of these guys outside of a desperation flex, like touchdown or bust type of option. However, little silver lining here, the fact that Washington ranks 3rd in overall rushing success rate on their running back runs so far this season, that shows us that if and when chaos hits, and remember, chaos and change are the only true constants of this league, that this backfield, if it ever gets whittled down to 2 members by injury, something else, whatever it is, someone could be a really big hit here, because, guys, this is the staple of Cliff Kingsbury's offense. You can say what you want about some of the passing game designs, and people have criticized the horizontal raid over the years. Every time this guy calls an offense, it's an efficient run game. And so far this year, we've seen that. So if, like, Bill Krosky-Merritt ever just suddenly ascends here, there's a lot of opportunity for someone to be really good in this backfield.
All right, let's take a look now. It's bye week. Maybe that's why everybody has sort of a feel this week. So, bye week blues, and in my mind's eye, Harmon is like he's got that like level of like, I've seen some things. Life's gotten dark. My fantasy football team didn't go where it wants. The hat's pulled down over. He's playing like a slide guitar and he's singing the blues. All right, bye week blues. Let's get favorite bench player who should get the spot start with 4 teams on the bye. So Harmon, who are you squeezing in now since everybody has the bye week blues?
Yeah, Sam Darnold, man. Chris talked about it earlier. I don't think he's getting enough credit for how he's playing right now. Sam Darnold has been really good, especially pushing the ball down the field. He is top 5 in yards on deep passes this season, behind only Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson, LOL. He played the Cowboys. We don't have to count that. And Cowboys quarterback himself, Dak Prescott. So, like, him and JSN have an awesome connection and great chemistry on these deep post routes, which if you're Clint Kubiak and you're trying to build off a run game here, you're trying to marry the run and pass together, you're doing these play action deep shots, Darnold has been money on those. That's the staple of this offense, and I think that's going to continue against an aggressive, blitz-happy Bucs defense. So I could see Sam Darnold. Is he going to have this monstrous ceiling here in fantasy football? I don't know about that, but if you need help, if you have Lamar Jackson, you have bye weeks, whatever, I think he can be a capable starting quarterback in fantasy this week.
Yeah, by the way, every single team in the league could have had Sam Darnold and could have had Daniel Jones. Just a reminder. Chris, what do you got for us?
One we're watching right now.
Yeah, 1,000%. Chris, what do you got for us for the bye week blues?
So I'm looking to the Cardinals backfield and Michael Carter, and I know folks have already picked up Amari DiMercato. We're looking at that potential backfield split, but if you are kind of pressed at the running back position, giving a spot start to Michael Carter makes some sense. And we heard earlier this week, Carter himself talking about the fact that he was going from practice squad standout to starting in this week, giving fantasy managers and the NFL at large some indication of usage for this week. But we can also go back to last year and see how he was used without having their starters in place. Now, I know it was week 18 and we don't really care too much about that particular usage, but still, seeing him get the start, and that was with Tony Jones and DJ Dallas in rotation. Carter did have over 68% of the team's rush attempts. And then also the thing that I'm most curious about, or the thing that at least given me some inclination to start him, is the fact that he was used as a receiver, 75% route rate, 13% target share. So if we are already looking at DiMercato as the pass catching 2-minute type of running back in this offense, Carter can also operate in that space. And with the Titans allowing the third most PPR points to pass catching running back so far through 4 weeks, if you need to start Carter, at least he has both the rushing and pass catching skills requisite for him picking up some points that you need for week 5.
I think we all know the Titans have already told us their ass. So, like, we know where that thing's going this year. Harmon, I mean, they said it. I'm just repeating it. Harmon, what do you got for us? Give me one more person on your bye week blues.
Okay, so Michael Pittman is not at the rostership level of guys like Sam Darnold or certainly Michael Carter. He's very much on rosters throughout Yahoo leagues, yet he is only 56% started right now, and I think that is a huge mistake. I don't think Pittman is getting enough credit for how well he has played to start the season. The Colts veteran receiver is tied with George Pickens for third among wideouts in first down targets. Heading into week 5, Puka Nacua led the way with 20. Malik Neighbors had 18. Michael Pittman sat at 17. He has been the guy that this football team wants to get the ball to on early downs. He's the primary read of the offense. He's been so good in just settling into zone coverage and presenting a reliable target to Daniel Jones. Like, he is Daniel Jones's guy. Yes, Tyler Warren has been awesome. Of course, my guy Josh Downs, I'm hoping he gets more opportunity with Alec Pierce out and A.D. Mitchell kind of on the outs a little bit too after some of the mistakes last week. But the sure-handed veteran receiver, that has been the guy that Daniel Jones has been looking to. And I think against your Raiders, Fitz, who allow the most yards to, or second most yards to outside receivers so far this season after that Cowboys king-making defense, I think Pittman is a guy that needs to be locked into a lot more lineups than 56% or whatever.
I'm telling you, it's going to be explosive for the Colts today. That's just real. I love that call by you. All right, let's get an update on the rankings. We'll bring Boone back in. We'll let Harmon and Chris have some tea together. Maybe crumpets, discuss the rest of the morning while they watch London football. Boone, what do you got for us? Breaking ranks. Who is breaking ranks for you right now as we sit, as with everything breaking close to kickoff?
All right. Well, some of this is based off things that we saw develop throughout the week. We saw in actives at the top of the show. The first one I want to bring up here, Rachaad White. I have him all the way up to RB18. Bucky Irving looks like he's not just going to miss this game. He might miss a couple. And White steps into that lead back role. Tom Pelissero reporting that White is going to get the majority of the carries today. Of course, Sean Tucker will be involved a little bit, but this is White's backfield. If this was going to be a long-term injury where Bucky was going to miss the rest of the season, I might want to place my chips on Tucker taking over that role. But right now, for a week or two, it's going to be Rachaad White. And this matchup against the Seahawks, it doesn't look great on paper. But if you look a little closer, what is Rachaad White great at? Catching passes out of the backfield. And that's where running backs have gotten the Seahawks this year. You have Jaylen Warren and CMC both putting up big days through the air against them. 73 receiving yards for CMC, 86 receiving yards for Jaylen Warren when he played them. So White right in that mix is a pretty strong RB2 today, with Sean Tucker being a very, very risky flex.
All right, we've got 3 slots, so give me somebody else that's standing out to you.
All right, another running back who's getting vaulted into some opportunity this week. Rico Dowdle, I have him up to RB17. I know a lot of people are going to be deciding, should it be Rachaad White? Should it be Rico Dowdle this week? I would give the edge to Dowdle, and a big reason for that is the matchup. The Dolphins defense, you can get after them, right? They're giving up the 3rd most rushing yards this year. They're giving up the 7th most fantasy points to running backs. Dowdle is going to be the lead guy. I know the offense for the Panthers isn't as exciting, but people forget Dowdle was a pretty good fantasy back last year on the Cowboys. He can take over this role. He can get this done. I really like him having a big day here in what's going to be a very, very soft matchup for him in his start. He's another guy that might get more than 1 week as the starter as well. So got to keep an eye on him. And then we'll round it out with the 3rd one. Jacoby Myers up to wide receiver 17. Brock Bowers out. Michael Mayer out. Normally when a tight end's out, you want to look who else is on the tight end depth chart on that team. Not so much here. We're going to look to the receivers. Jacoby Myers constantly underrated every season. He is a very, very good receiver. This year, over 60 yards in 3 of his 4 games already. Hasn't found the end zone yet. So fantasy managers looking at the fantasy totals are wondering, the numbers aren't that great. Well, what if he does find the end zone? The matchup with the Colts, not that worrisome. So I think you could play Jacoby Myers this week as a volume play. Pretty solid wide receiver too in this matchup.
All right, let's bring the boys back together. We'll huddle up. It is time for some hurry-up offense, putting 25 seconds on the clock. And we'll run through a bunch of questions that we get here. First one comes from Sport Fanatic. Says, PPR, same game. Woody Marks or Zay Flowers? # make your pick. What do you think, Chris? What do you got for us? Okay, we may not have Chris there. Let me see if we can get Harmon on this one. Let's see which one. We got some technical difficulties here. So if we go same game, Woody Marks or Zay Flowers, we got the whistle. Let's see if we can get Harmon on it. Harmon, what do you think? Woody Marks or Zay Flowers?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I think I'm going to go with Woody Marks, though. Look, I don't know what Cooper Rush is going to look like managing this Ravens offense. You couldn't go from like a different type of quarterback, not just in terms of obviously the mobility, but also just where they distribute the football in terms of Cooper Rush from Lamar Jackson. So I loved Woody Marks' role last week. It's maybe a little bit spicy, but I think I would chase Marks in this matchup. The Ravens' run defense has been terrible this year.
All right, now we will try Chris. We'll try Chris again, and we'll say, Chris, I got back in. Yeah, Chris, you get the next one out. B says, I know it's an extra position, but I need a win. Please pick 1 RB and 1 flex out of these 4. King Henry, Walker, Warren, Harvey. Thank you. What do you think, Chris?
The flex has to be Tyler Warren, seeing his usage now over the past couple of weeks, and also the rushing attempts once they get inside the 5 and inside the 10. So Tyler Warren would probably be a locked-in player here. I'm going to go down with the ship. I'm going to go King Henry in this one. I will say I'll give him this week, and I know it's going to be tough with Cooper Rush under center, but given the volume, I'll say Henry here.
All right, let's get this one in from Snuffleupagus, which just makes me want to give somebody a hug. Goes to Boone, and Boone says, just traded Quentin Johnston, BTJ, for Jamar Chase, Scatterboo. My receivers are Sutton, Odunze, and Rice. Did I lose this trade? What do you think, Boone?
I think based on the receivers that they have, they're going to be fine. I actually like this deal. Scatterboo, of course, taking over that backfield, a ton of volume. Great matchup today. You might want to think about trading Scatterboo after this matchup, though, because the next 3 weeks after that, he's had some very, very tough matchups. But I think that's a fine deal to make. I think Jamar Chase is a buy low as well.
All right, let's get one more in here to Harmon from Nema. Says, ask FFL. Wan'Dale Robinson, RJ Harvey, DeMarcado, or Chris Godwin, half PPR. What do you got?
Of course, I'd get the Wan'Dale Robinson question. I think I'm going to go Chris Godwin here again. Like, I'm really not that optimistic about Godwin. I just think with the other options here, I just don't see a lot of juice for Wan'Dale Robinson in this game. RJ Harvey still splitting the touches, and it's a difficult matchup. And then Amari DeMarcado, I think he's mostly the long down and distance back there, so I'd go with Chris Godwin here.
All right, keep the questions coming. We will keep answering them throughout the course of the show. But when we come back, it's time to lock it in. We're going to take a look at some performers that we think no matter what, they're going to be just fine today. We'll tell you about it next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live here on Yahoo Sports. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. We are here as we are every single Sunday from 11:30 a.m. Eastern all the way to 1 p.m. Just getting you caught up, ready for kickoff. You can hang out with us, obviously, on YouTube. Get your questions out there. Hashtag AskFFL is how you can get in on the fun. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski just settled into Twitter X for last-minute questions. So you can ask hashtag AskFFL on Twitter X there as well. We're getting all your questions answered. At least we're trying our damnedest to make sure it happens. In the meantime, we've got action going on as we speak in London. Justin Jefferson, 6 catches, 102 yards. Quinshon Judkins with 113 total yards of offense. Score remains 17-14. We are in the fourth quarter. The Vikings with the ball and the Vikings driving. The consequence of this drive would be substantial to anybody that may have bet the over-under on this one, which was 37.5. So a touchdown would make a big difference. Buckered up for the fourth quarter, I'm just saying, boys. All right, let's get back into some of the matchups we got coming over the course of the day, although I'll hold here and I will tell you the Vikings have just missed a field goal wide right. So the Vikings had the chance. The Vikings missed the field goal wide right. The score remains the same. All right, let's get to lock it in. Matchup-proof players for week 5. Somebody that you don't give a damn who they're playing. You feel confident. Justin Boone, we will start with you. Boone, what do you got for us?
I didn't do this on purpose. I feel like I'm playing up to you, Fitz. I talked about Jacoby Myers in the last block. Now I'm talking about Ashton Jeanty going against the Colts. And yeah, the matchup with the Colts for a running back, it's not necessarily a great one, especially when your offensive line is bad and now is decimated by injuries even worse. The Colts only allowing the 7th fewest fantasy points to running backs this season. So why on earth am I suggesting that Jeanty can be matchup proof? Well, we're starting to see him get used more in the passing game, and I think that's huge. In week 2, he ran a route in just 38% of the dropbacks. Week 3, that went up to 47%. Week 4, that was up to 57%, and he caught 2 touchdowns. Now you have Brock Bowers out. You have Michael Mayer out. Who is going to step up? There is a correlation between running backs and tight ends when it comes to targets. You see when one of the starters is out at one of those positions, the other position tends to pick up some of that slack. I think Jeanty is going to be involved in the passing game moving forward. I think that's huge for his value, and I think that's what makes him pretty matchup proof. We know he's a good talent. As long as he's going to be involved in the passing game, he's going to be a good fantasy play.
Look, this matchup should be interesting for fantasy players because there could be a lot of points in it. Chris, what do you got for us as somebody that you're locking in no matter who they're playing?
So for this week, I'm going to go to the Panthers passing game, which I know can be something of a scary proposition for some for fantasy managers week in and week out. But I'm looking at Tetairoa and McMillan for this matchup. And for fantasy purposes, we look at scoring or the potential to score for fantasy players at the crossroads of talent and situation. And we know that McMillan has the talent so far through 4 weeks. First on the team in target share, 25% target rate, 41% of the team's air yards. Those are top 20 marks amongst all wide receivers. The only problem has been that 65% catchable target rate. And so that's where we go to his situation. Meanwhile, Bryce Young has been something of a problem behind the offensive line. This should be the matchup that we target. Going up against the Dolphins, 29th in pressure rate, 31st in defensive EPA per play. And of course, also bottom 12 in passing yards per game allowed. So we've got both of those components, right? We know that McMillan, solid route runner, also great at operating after the catch. And then also he has the situation going up against the Dolphins secondary. We've seen guys like Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman, all score over 20 PPR fantasy points against the same Dolphins defense. Even Khalil Shakir and, of course, Kayshon Boutte getting TDs against them. So everything's set up for McMillan to have one of those boom weeks we've been asking for. And in this game against the Dolphins, we should have it.
All right, Harmon, who you got your eyes on that's lockup proof or that's matchup proof? I'll learn how to speak.
That's all good. Don't worry about it. I'm going to stick with the rookie theme here, and I will say Buccaneers wide receiver Emeka Egbuka is a guy that is matchup proof at this point. Now, that doesn't mean he might not have a slow week here against a really good Seattle Seahawks defense. I love what the Seahawks have done so far. Their secondary is good. Their front is even better. So I do think it might be a little bit of a slog offensively for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this could be a low-scoring game. But right now, like, Egbuka is a guy that you are just locking into your lineup as a wide receiver 2 bare minimum. We saw last week without Mike Evans and even with Chris Godwin coming back, he is the guy. Ran around on 95.3% of the dropbacks, which was the most among all pass catchers for Tampa Bay. Had 24.4% in terms of targets per route run. Tied Chris Godwin with a team high in 10 targets. I know that some people are like, well, yeah, if you take away that, kind of maybe busted coverage play, what does this week look like? Well, guess what, folks? You can't take it away. It happened, and it happens to a lot of wide receivers. They get loose in zone coverage. They get lost by the defenders. We don't take it away from everybody. We're not taking it away from the rookie here. So the guy's just played extremely good football. He's someone that Baker Mayfield trusts. He's playing all three receiver positions. He's the guy right now in Tampa Bay in terms of the wide receiver room. So regardless of matchup, I think he is someone you put in your lineup every single week.
All right, this is where Boone and I get to go snuggle and watch some football. We will let Matt and Chris take it over. Gentlemen, give us the fantasy face-off. What do you got for us?
All right, Chris. Well, here in the face-off, we're going to respect some distance here. No snuggling for the fantasy face-off. But
I'm the big spoon.
Yeah,
no. We'll figure it out later.
No, let's keep the space. But you know who's a big player is Darren Waller. That guy's got a lot of size to him, and he put up a big box score in week 4 with a pair of touchdowns in his first game action since coming out of retirement to play for the Miami Dolphins. So let's take him and put him against some similarly ranked players here for week 5 at the tight end position. Chris, would you rather start Darren Waller or Mark Andrews without Lamar Jackson?
In this one, I'm still going to go Darren Waller. Now, I know Waller only ran 10 routes in week 4, so super small sample size, but we should be able to project a larger workload for Waller now without Tyreek Hill. And I'm looking at Mark Andrews, just 2 of 12 targets from Cooper Rush against the Chiefs. I would say that it's probably reasonable to expect they try and, let's say, spread the ball around to some of their other pass catchers now without Lamar Jackson. So I would say that in this case, while Mark Andrews did start to bounce back a bit after a slow start to the 2025 season, I have to go Waller in this matchup.
I think I'm with you. Yeah, the playing time isn't exactly what you want from Waller, but maybe that ramps up over the course of his time with the team as he gets into shape. But also, no Tyreek Hill. Maybe that changes it as well. Plus, much better matchup for him against the Panthers than Mark Andrews and that Texans defense. Let's stick with some big fish here at the tight end position. Let's match up Darren Waller versus Travis Kelce. Which one are you going with this week?
So this one's a bit close, but seeing how Travis Kelce was used in the first game back for Xavier Worthy, and I'll talk a bit more about Worthy later on in the show, but we did see a slight drop for Travis Kelce in target share, down to 14.3%. And also his average depth of target has been on the decline, down to 3.2 air yards in week 4, almost kind of a Zach Ertz-ish type of usage. So not really seeing some of those, he is getting some of those layup targets, but not enough really to float his fantasy value. So if we're seeing Kelce on the decline in terms of opportunity and we're projecting Waller for an uptick in usage, I would say it's Waller in this matchup, but it is close for week 5.
Yeah, it is very close. I legitimately have these two guys back-to-back in my rankings, but I do have Travis Kelce one spot higher than Darren Waller simply because he's going to be on the field more. In terms of matchup, it's against the Jaguars defense, who's played really well this year, especially at the linebacker level. They've got a lot of speed. Travis Kelce doesn't got a lot of speed at this point, so that doesn't necessarily line up in my favor, but just the fact that he's on the field more than Waller, I think I'll give the tie there, break it in the favor of Travis Kelce, the Chiefs tight end. I keep talking, Chris, about all these big-name players, but the biggest producer that we're going to put Darren Waller up against here is Hunter Henry, who is the tight end 1 in fantasy football here entering week 5, which I'm sure everybody predicted that. Everyone saw that coming. So Hunter Henry, Darren Waller, which way are we going here?
I'll go with the Patriots pass catcher in this case. I know he did have just 2 targets last week, but he found a way to fall into the end zone. But this is also going up against a Bills defense now. Ed Oliver and Matt Milano, they got the Q tag, are potentially out. And also Dorian Williams, one of their linebackers, are also out. And now I would say in this case, some of your logic from the last competition or comparison we were doing with Darren Waller versus Travis Kelce, I'll try and use the same logic in that, do I really want to try and trust a guy catching passes from Tua Tagovailoa or a guy catching passes from Drake May? So I would say in this case, I'll give the quarterback edge to Hunter Henry versus what we can expect out of Tua and Darren Waller.
Yeah, you're kind of chasing a touchdown with either of these guys, although Hunter Henry's done a little bit more than that in some weeks. So I'm also going to go with Hunter Henry in that one. All right, we settled the tight end debate there with Darren Waller. Let's throw it back to Fitz and Boone, see if they're done cuddling and can help you guys with some of your lineups.
Never done cuddling, but we are ready to make some picks. Boone, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get some questions up here, and you can help people get it all figured out. Let's start with James Fish. And James Fish says, Jamison Williams, Christian Kirk, Michael Carter, Darius Slayton need 2 full PPR, 2-spot flex league. What do you think? That's a lot there.
This is a fun one, yeah. I'm going with Michael Carter for sure. We're going to go with Michael Carter, who expects to get the most work in what's going to be a good matchup. I don't know if most weeks I would feel confident playing him, but against the Titans, I definitely think you can put him out there. And then Jamison Williams. And I've talked before about Jared Goff going on the road. We might talk about that a little bit later in the show. But Jamison Williams in this matchup with the Bengals, even though they're going to be outdoors, even though they're on the road, I think he comes through in this one.
Yeah, I like that call by you a lot. Sarah is the next question. Sarah says, Debo or Godwin, Chubb, Ramondre, or Kroenke Merritt? So those are your questions for you. Debo or Godwin, Chubb, Ramondre, or Kroenke Merritt?
I don't really love any of those running back options, but I will say that I will go with Ramondre Stevenson. He is still the lead back there. The other guys are in more of committees for sure. We haven't seen Travion Henderson step up yet. Ramondre is still playing about 57% of the snaps, so Ramondre is my pick there, even though he's going up against my Bills. And then for the receivers, I know Chris Godwin had a ton of volume last week. I didn't necessarily think he looked back to form yet. Debo's dealing with an injury of his own, but he's going to play through it. So I think you would want to go with Debo here. He's the main guy in that passing attack until Terry McLaurin comes back. So Debo would be the play between those two receivers.
The next question comes in. I won't figure out the username. I'm not smart on these. Read the license plate games, but a bunch of letters there. Bucky out, Bijan on bye. Been picking up anyone available. Need 2 running backs from Woody Marks, Charbonnet, Harvey, Michael Carter, Rico Dowdle. Is Dowdle and Marks just for number of likely touches? Thanks. What do you think?
This is the best kind of question when they answer it themselves. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Rico Dowdle, I think he's going to be a strong RB2, a top 20 play this week at running back. And then Woody Marks, for sure. After what we saw last week, I'm willing to chase that again. I think there is a good chance that he is now the lead back for the Texans, and he showed a lot more juice in the running game than I thought he had. I knew he was going to be a good pass catcher. I did not know he was going to be able to produce on the ground like that. So let's see him do it again and continue to build off it in a game against the Ravens, who are absolutely crushed with injuries.
Dan points out it was YMIACPA. Very well done. Next question was the username on that. Lamar's asks, May or Goff, Hunter Henry or Charbonnet or Torrey Horton? So what do you think on that? May or Goff, Henry or Charbonnet or Horton?
We're going May over Goff, even though I think both those guys are going to be pretty strong plays this week. And then for the other one, man, that is very difficult. You're basically, it's touchdown or bust for Henry or Charbonnet. I would go with Henry. I think he's going to get more guaranteed volume in this game. I think Charbonnet is still behind Kenneth Walker. So we're going to play Henry, even though don't feel great about any of those options. Got to hope for a touchdown.
All right, we got one coming in from YouTube, too, that I want to get in here. Jeanty or Scatterboot in non-PPR? Thanks, guys. What do you think, Jeanty or Scatterboot non-PPR?
It's very close. I have them ranked back-to-back, but we're going with Scatterboot. The massive volume that he's gotten over the last couple of weeks here, and he's looked pretty good with it. And this matchup against the Saints is a game that they're going to be able to run the ball. So let's go with Scatterboot there.
Perfect. We're just getting started here. Keep the questions coming in the chat. In the meantime, we've got a big Sunday night football matchup. Stephon Diggs broke out week 4. Kincaid living in the end zone. Is it time to sell high? We'll talk about it next on FFL. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. We'll keep you updated on London football if we get more action you need to know about. But in the meantime, it's Sunday. We have huge Sunday night football. Patriots at the Bills, a big matchup. Big spread on this one. 8 points for Buffalo, 49.5 is your over-under on that game taking place in Buffalo. So let's take a look at it and figure out what you guys have your eyes on. Matt Harmon, what stands out to you in this one?
Stephon Diggs went back to a big role in week 4, and I think this is huge for the Patriots passing game and huge for anybody who drafted Stephon Diggs in fantasy. Diggs ran a route on just about 81% of the dropbacks in week 4, which was a season high and does not tell the story truly because this was a complete blowout over Carolina, so Diggs didn't really even play in the fourth quarter. He might have been closer to a 90% participation player over the course of the full game had he needed to be out there. But the most important thing to me is less about Diggs finally getting a full-time role and just how good I thought he looked in week 4. Because I'll be honest, people know this. I love Diggs. He's one of my favorite receivers over the last 10 years. I did not think he looked right in the first 3 weeks of the season, but he's coming back from a serious injury, tore his ACL in week 8 of last year, and just being out there on the field is a miracle enough. In week 4, though, he finally started to look like the player I thought he might be for this Patriots offense. He was awesome against zone coverage, consistently settling at all 3 levels of the field, which was huge for Drake May, who really had the right timing and chemistry with Diggs to get him the ball in those situations. Even more importantly, though, Diggs had 2 massive catches against man coverage. I realized that this is the Panthers defense we're talking about here, and the Bills defense is better than that. But nevertheless, just seeing him operate at that level individually was huge for a guy that they want to be the lead receiver, and they kind of need to be the lead receiver for this team to get where it wants to go.
All right, Justin Boone, I know that you will be excited for this game tonight. Boone, what do you got your eyes on for?
Yeah, as the resident Bills fan, of course I'm going to talk about the Bills, but it might not be in the way that you think. I'm actually going to say that I would recommend that people are looking to sell Dalton Kincaid right now, and it's been a fantastic rollout for him. He's the tight end 3 in fantasy points per game right now, but on the year, he has only played 48% of the Bills' snaps. It's not just Dawson Knox rotating in, it's Jackson Haas rotating in as well. I don't think he is going to be able to maintain this pace unless his playing time goes up. And the hope was going into the season, we were going to see it rise. It's not. This is the role that they have him in. He cannot continue this kind of touchdown production, keeping him afloat in fantasy. He is going to settle down into more of a low-end tight end 1 spot. So if you could trade him for value right now, I would be trying to do that. Even if he comes out in this game and has another good performance, look to trade him unless we see those snaps rise.
Interesting take. I really like that. Chris, what do you got for us?
Are we ever going to feel confident starting any of the Patriots running backs at this point? We even got the situation in week 3 after seeing 2 fumbles from Ramondre Stevenson that we would get some clarity in week 4. Nope, didn't get any of that. Ramondre Stevenson still led the backfield with 39% of the rushing attempts. Henderson got mixed in with the most targets out of the group, 12% target share. And then, of course, it was Antonio Gibson with 2 cracks from inside the 5-yard line. They're getting split in almost every facet of how we would want a running back to produce from a fantasy standpoint. And not to say that this is going to be the matchup that you would want to target for a running back. And the Bills are 16th in PPR points per game allowed to running backs. But after the 169 yards that they allowed to Derrick Henry, it was 12 for 62 to Devon Achane, 15 for 70 to Alvin Kamara, and even 1165 to Kendre Miller. This is a gettable defense from a rushing standpoint, but if it's going to continue to be split 3 ways, and potentially a 4th with Drake May having the 5th most red zone scrambles so far through 4 games, how can we have any sort of confidence in starting any of these guys moving forward? I just don't see it.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I want to get you updated. The Vikings have just gotten the ball back. There's about 3 minutes to go in the game. They have the ball back. They're going to try and drive their way down the field to tie it. They currently trail 17-14 in Dylan Gabriel's debut. They have the ball at their own 29-yard line. So we'll keep you updated on that as we get more outcome here. In the meantime, let's get to primetime picks. You know the drill. We picked 3 games from the slate, a couple of primetime games and a big game, and we go through our fantasy snake draft. Now, Chris Allen with a big win. Chris Allen reminded us last week.
Put the crown on.
That helmet, that's fancy, dude. Like, I like that. Like, it's
I gotta wear it once. I don't get too often. There's not gonna be too many times I'm probably gonna wear this throughout the season. So if I'm gonna take one W and put the crown on, we got to do it, man. You just have to do it.
I don't blame it. Like Chris said last week, I want you guys to understand I know what I'm doing here. And then he came out one big. Although it is interesting when you look at the total points, nobody has more total points than Matt Harmon, who has yet to actually sneak out a win.
We're not looking at that column yet. Let's not look at that one.
We're looking at it. Yeah. Regression is coming, boys. Regression is coming.
We don't have to.
Yeah, well, right now where we stand, we're going to be picking between Tampa Bay, Seattle, New England, Buffalo, the Sunday night game we just mentioned, and of course the big Monday night game, Chiefs at Jags. So because he might be the leader in the points, but he has not yet gotten a win. Harmon with the first pick in this week's draft. Harmon, who you bringing to us first?
Yeah, no more goofing around here. We're getting a win this week. We're regressing to the mean in terms of points scored. We're going to go with one of the best players in fantasy football, which is James Cook, Buffalo Bills running back, first overall.
He made that one easy. Chris, what do you got for us?
I'll take the wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba. His target rate and also the connection with Sam Darnold has been one to target. And also going up against the Bucs defense, that's been something of a pass funnel. I'll take JSN here.
I absolutely love ETN in this matchup on Monday Night Football, so I run up to this with confidence, saying I'm happy with who I got with my first pick. I will take ETN on the Monday night matchup and then hand it over to Boone. Boone, what do you got for us?
Getting pretty comfortable picking last in the first round here every single week. Xavier Worthy is my pick here. It's his first healthy game last week. Comes right out and is the player that we expected him to be in week one before he got hurt, right? 5 catches, 83 yards, 2 carries for 38 yards. He is a huge part of that offense, and they need him to be. So he's going to have a big game in this one. I'm as a top 12 fantasy receiver this week. And then I'll wrap it around and take another guy who I have as a top 12 fantasy receiver this week. And our favorite guy, Emeka Egbuka, just keeps finding a way to produce 4 touchdowns in 4 games. He is a full-time player in this offense. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think Chris Godwin is back to form yet. So I think Emeka Egbuka is going to continue to be the number 1 receiver in that offense for a while.
Yeah, this is where I start to get less and less confident as things careen down. I will take Kenneth Walker and just hope that what we've seen over the last couple of weeks maybe maintains it. That backfield always makes me nervous with splits, but I'll take Kenneth Walker and feel lightly confident. Chris, what do you got?
So a little peek behind the curtain here. All right, I want to say that there was some BS that it was already predicted that I was going to take Hollywood Brown with this pick. Okay, I'm done with the Hollywood Brown thing. I tried it for a couple of weeks.
Still available.
It didn't work. I get it. Okay. We're going to move on. We're going to try and move on. And I'm going to take a different pass catcher attached to Patrick Mahomes. And I'm going to go Travis Kelce. Okay. Watch, and this is going to be the week that Hollywood Brown actually winds up doing
of course.
But still, we'll go Travis Kelce in this matchup. I mean, the Jags, like we were talking earlier, linebacker core has been pretty solid, but from a target share standpoint, it's potentially seen him fall into the end zone this week. I'll take it.
All right, that means, Matt, you have 2 straight picks. What do you got for us?
Crazy to see Chris Allen abandon his guy, Hollywood Brown, at this spot. I wouldn't say that Rachaad White is my guy necessarily, but I do have to start him in a couple of actual leagues, so why not double down on it here? The matchup isn't great, but he has been efficient and effective as a rusher, and we know that he's going to get a ton of passes out of the backfield. We saw that last week as Tampa Bay was dealing with some offensive line injuries. Both Bucky Irving and White were targeted on over 20% of their routes run last week. I think he could catch like 7 balls in a dump-off fashion in this game. Catching the ball has not been the specialty for Brian Thomas Jr. so far this year, yet I will go with him here and just hope that we see some of that volume regress into a big performance for BTJ. Monday night game, they were trying to get him going on more outbreakers last week. Let's get this second-year receiver a little bit back to the form we saw last year.
I like that. Chris Allen, what do you have next for us?
I'll take Khalil Shakir as my final pick here. His targets have started to pick up over the last few weeks, and this would be kind of a matchup that you'd want to target if we expect this to be something of a back and forth between the Bills and the Patriots. I'll take Shakir here.
I don't know. I was just listening to the show earlier, and I'm sitting here feeling better and better because I already knew I was taking Stephon Diggs, and he falls to me right here. So I use Harmon's math to get myself to the guy that's going to get me the win this week. Woo! I feel really good about this. Like, this is the ultimate. This is how I got through high school. I use Harmon's math, and then suddenly I hope that gets me to pass the test.
You are much older than me. We were not in high school at the same time.
No, that is
you
correct.
are much
but
much
it's
older.
the logic. It's the logic. I'm just saying, like, maybe to find
just want that on the record.
Wow, much older. God, he's not wrong though. Boone, what do you got?
Oh, you guys are killing me. Those last two picks just leaves me with nothing here from that Bills-Patriots game. I'll go with Ramondre Stevenson. I recommended him to one of the questions earlier. I don't really love this pick, but he is the lead back for the Patriots, and there is not much to select from here, so let's hope he finds the end zone, I guess, in this one.
The Vikings are trying to find the end zone, by the way, in this Sunday early morning matchup. They have driven down the field. They are in field goal range. We could be looking at overtime in London football. We'll keep you updated on it. In the meantime, let's bring everybody together for some hurry-up offense. Got a bunch of questions in the YouTube chat, so we're going to get you some of these YouTube chats out there. I'll go through this step by step. JR says, guys, should I just drop Spears for Pacheco in my league? I just need bench depth. What do you think on that one, Harmon?
I mean, no. Who cares is probably the right answer. We're talking about the second running back for the Tennessee Titans. That doesn't get me fired up, but until Pacheco is able to completely remove and dust Kareem Hunt from this backfield, he's not going to be a routine fantasy starter either, which at this point, that's just not happening. So whichever one you want, it doesn't really matter.
All right, the next question comes from Headley. Headley says, good morning, boys. Adams, Pickens, Henry, White, Godwin, or Chase Brown for the flex full PPR. Chris, what do you think?
Even if what should be, I don't know if it's going to be a tougher matchup for George Pickens, but after his performance last week, seeing the uptick in targets and also potential for another solid game with playing with Dak Prescott, I mean, I'd have to go Pickens out of that group.
All right, the next question comes from Luis. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. It says, full PPR, need 2 in my flex. Olave, White, or Dowdle. Thank you. What do you think, Boone?
Oh, that is a tough one. In full PPR, I'm gonna go. I'm even second guessing myself. White for sure. I am gonna go Rico Dowdle over Olave, but I actually think all 3 of these guys are gonna have good games this week, and that's why I was so hesitant on this one. I wanted to get Olave in there, but we'll go with the backs and the guaranteed volume.
All right, Harmon, we'll go next to Colleen. Colleen says, hashtag AskFFL, hashtag FFL, Waddle or Sutton. What do you think?
Yeah, Sutton's played really good football this year. Just kind of the consummate steady Eddie at the X receiver position outside of one down week. But I'm going to go Jalen Waddle in this one. I expect his role to change now that Tyreek Hill is out. Tyreek missed one game back in 2023. Jalen Waddle immediately went off, and he gets a bad Panthers defense. So I'll go Jalen Waddle in this one.
Chris, we'll get the last one to you from Wesley Whiteside, who says, McCaffrey, Mims, Kupp, need to flex one. What do you think?
Even with the uptick for McCaffrey, let's see what the rest of the Broncos offense can do against the Eagles. I'd have to go Kupp here. I mean, plus 20% of the team's targets in 2 of 4 games. And again, we were talking earlier about them having to face the Bucs defense. That's been something of a pass funnel. So if we're assuming Sam Darnold is going to be faced with a little bit of pressure or Todd Bowles continues to send blitzes, Kupp should be the beneficiary of that, along with JSN.
All right, we will get you updated on what's happening in London. Plus, coming up next, Patrick Mahomes, has he returned to must-start fantasy quarterback status? We'll break down the big Monday Night Football game next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. A touchdown and the extra point is good, and the Minnesota Vikings have taken the lead 21-17 over the Cleveland Browns. That with 25 seconds remaining in this game. So you see it right there. Justin Jefferson, 7 catches for 123 yards, but Jordan Addison scores the go-ahead touchdown very late in this game. Carson Wentz able to take the Vikings down the field when all the Browns needed was a stop. They just couldn't get one. So in a game that has been just back and forth in a defensive struggle, the Vikings take the lead 21-17, Dillon Gabriel's first start. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. I am Jason Fitz. We also want to remind you of the inactives. If you're just tuning in, getting your rosters ready, we got a bunch of news here for you. So Brock Bowers, inactive today. Tyrone Tracy, inactive. Juwan Johnson, you see they're active. Lamar Jackson, inactive on that. Let's take a look at the later action happening this afternoon as well, and you'll see that we've got a couple of big names there. Bucky Irving is out in this game. Mike Evans out in this game. Calvin Ridley questionable. Now, the Bucky Irving situation is a little bit more complicated than we thought, as Adam Schefter went to Twitter X and told us that it turns out that Buccaneers running back Bucky Irving's shoulder injury, which he did not report to the team until Tuesday last week, is more of an issue than his sprained foot per sources. Irving is dealing with the shoulder subluxation, so I can't say that is expected to sideline him at least 2 weeks. Irving will not play today versus the Seahawks, and he's not expected back for next week's game versus the 49ers either. Harmon, when you hear that about Irving, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, good reminder here, folks. The injury report is not gospel. You do not know what these guys are dealing with. Sometimes they do not report things. Sometimes the team doesn't report things, okay? So guys are sometimes playing through something that we don't even know about. So let's always keep that in mind when we're talking about players. Secondly here, I think Boone mentioned this earlier, that a guy to pay attention to is Sean Tucker, who looks like a good, rugged runner, was a really good prospect that went undrafted because of a medical issue a couple of years ago. But he is definitely someone to maybe stash, keep on the end of your bench, because I do think Rachaad White has played well, and he'll get the first crack, and I expect him to lead the team in touches with Bucky Irving out. But Tucker is still somebody to stash just in case something happens to Rachaad White, or they want to just mix in a different dimension here. But I do think Rachaad White, as long as Bucky Irving is out, is going to be like a solid running back 2 for fantasy football.
Thanks to modern kickoff rules, the Browns got decent field position. A completion takes it to the 50. Dillon Gabriel has just heaved up a Hail Mary that has been intercepted. The Vikings will win this football game. A Hail Mary from the 50-yard line. Looks like that is going to be it for this. The Vikings look like they're going to get the win, although I see coaches, the play may have been blown dead. So now they're saying prior to the snap, there was a whistle, and so it looks like the Vikings had attempted to call timeout, and they're saying that prior to the snap, that timeout was rewarded. So much like icing a kicker, I don't know, maybe we're icing the quarterback before he heaves the ball 50 yards down the field. So Dillon Gabriel will get Kevin O'Connor is losing his mind at this point. O'Connell, I should say. I don't know what our KOC is doing right now, but their KOC is losing his mind. So we'll see how this goes. We'll keep it here for a second as we figure out how this game plays out. Gentlemen, at least we're getting some excitement at the end of it. We will get a Hail Mary from the 50. Just a reminder that, the modern kickoff rules, nothing's over until it's over, right? Like, one completion got the Browns to the 50-yard line. So good news here is it's a 4-point game, not a 3-point game. So they're lining up to attempt another Hail Mary. The Browns are about to snap the football. Again, the first one was intercepted, but because of a timeout, they'll get another draw at it. Dillon Gabriel takes the snap. He's dropping back now. He's waiting. He is not heaving the ball. He's throwing the ball instead to the 30-yard line. Tackle inbounds. That's going to run the clock out. That's going to be the end of the football game. Not sure exactly what they were going for there. Anticlimactic ending. Yeah, it's just
exhilarating call, Fitz.
On the edge of my seat.
I just want to remind the world that with 3 minutes to go, the Browns had a 3-point lead with Dillon Gabriel at the quarterback position. They had an opportunity to win this and just couldn't get a stop. Also, they just showed Carson Wentz and Dillon Gabriel standing next to each other at midfield. And I'm not kidding. Dillon Gabriel came up to Carson Wentz's shoulder pads. Like, he's a wee little man playing quarterback in the NFL. he is. He's not, He's not the highest in stature. Let's get to the Monday Night Football matchup now that we know how Sunday morning football started. Monday night matchup, Chiefs at Jags. Chiefs favored by 3.5. This one, 45.5 is the over-under. Again, this game is in Jacksonville. So what do you have your eye on in this one, Boone?
I think we need to give Patrick Mahomes some props here. And as a Bills fan, I do not want to do that. And yet, we have to acknowledge what he's been doing this year. The last 2 seasons, his fantasy stock went from being an elite fantasy quarterback to being a borderline low-end QB1. It was not great. QB 12, QB 13 the last 2 years. This season, without Rashee Rice suspended, without Xavier Worthy up until last week, he has been really, really good, right? The QB3 overall in fantasy points per game. He's finished as a top 6 fantasy quarterback in 3 of the first 4 weeks. And his production is up around 4 fantasy points per game. It is huge. He's running the ball more again, which is great for his fantasy stock. He's got Worthy. He's going to have Rice soon. I think he is right back up there in the elite quarterback conversation. He's playing great. And I think even though the Jags pass rush is very strong, I think he's going to come through with another big day on Monday night.
Chris, what do you got your eyes on for in this Monday night matchup?
Well, similar to what Boone was just talking about, seeing Xavier Worthy back on the field, that was part of the boost that we saw from an efficiency standpoint from Patrick Mahomes. And sticking with Mahomes a bit, week 4, now I'll caveat all of this actually before I get into the analysis. Caveat all of this, they're playing against the Ravens defense. Now the Ravens team, their defense so far, they're the only team that's allowing top 5 marks to both quarterbacks and then also running backs as well through 4 weeks. But seeing Mahomes being able to operate behind that offensive line was something of a switch up with Xavier Worthy back on the field. On week 4, it was his second highest rate of throwing within the rhythm of the offense. So that's where, without pressure, throwing around 2.5 seconds before from an average time to throw standpoint, and be able to get the ball out there again, working within the confines or within the concept of that particular play. And that was with Xavier Worthy back there on the field. And in the weeks 2 and 3, you kind of saw some of that. And while it was trying to force feed my guy Hollywood Brown for targets or whatever, a lot of the hitches and also seeing a lot of the scrambles from Mahomes was because a lot of those guys weren't getting open. And those plays weren't working out as intended. But in week 4, everything was seeming to click. I mean, we saw Travis Kelce getting mixed in, Juju Smith-Schuster working in, and of course, each of the running backs as well. I mean, folks will probably wind up picking up Rashard Smith off the waiver wire for how much he was being used as a pass catcher out of that backfield. So everything was seemingly coming up Chiefs or Mahomes in week 4. And with Xavier Worthy back, it should be a reason for us to have a bit more optimism rostering some of those guys. So while the Jaguars defense, 19th in pressure rate, should be something of a harder out for Mahomes and the rest of the crew. I mean, seeing Xavier Worthy back there on the field has to be one of those things that you would hope to see the Chiefs get back into their form.
Harmon, what do you got your eyes on?
All right, so there's been so much discussion about the Jaguars' passing game and what it hasn't been so far. BTJ's disappointing second season. Trevor Lawrence still kind of playing up and down. Travis Hunter's lack of involvement. And I think all of that has sort of disguised the fact that Liam Cohen's done an excellent job turning around a ground game in Jacksonville that was really stagnant prior to his arrival. The Jaguars are 11th right now in rushing success rate on their running back runs. They have been excellent as a ground team. To put a finer point on just how different this unit is than what it was previously, so far this year, Jacksonville has the 4th lowest stuff rate. That is the rate of carries that go for 0 or negative yards on the season. In 2022 to 2024, they led the league in stuff rate. The highest percentage of their runs went for 0 or negative yards. This is an immediate thing we can point to, Liam Cohen being here. Remember, the Buccaneers run game was awesome under his direction last year. They're doing it differently here in Jacksonville. They're much more of a zone-based run team than a gap-based run team, which has been a great fit for Travis Etienne, who kind of has turned his stagnated career around so far this season. He's the running back 9 in fantasy football. He's averaging 2.35 yards before contact per rush. That's the most among backs. He's following those holes. The holes are available for him. But also don't forget about Bashal Tutin, who is not a fantasy starter at this point, but looks awesome out there and is another player that fits this outside zone system very well. So he's one of the priority kind of stashes right now. And Etienne is an every week starter in fantasy football, a running back 1 that you likely drafted much later than he's playing right now.
Keep everything Harmon just said in mind, because I have a sneaking suspicion it's not the last time you'll hear about some of those rushing numbers for the Jags in this show. All right, gentlemen, it's time for some Believe, Make Believe. Boone, Chris, give us what you got.
Well, Chris, I saw that Vikings game in London that Jason Sudeikis, Ted Lasso himself, was there. And I think for this one, it'd be nice if we had that believe sign. You should have written it on your whiteboard back there, maybe for this segment.
That's
but
right.
We're going to talk about storylines that we either believe in or that we think are make-believe. I will give you the floor first, man. What is a storyline that you either believe in or think is make-believe?
So I say all of this knowing you see the hats back behind me, right? I know I'm a Bengals fan, but Ravens without Lamar Jackson, their season's over. I mean, looking at their current record right now in the AFC North, and also now seeing the potential for Lamar to sit for a little bit longer. I mean, I already mentioned their defensive woes. I mean, allowing the most points per game to opposing running backs, third most to opposing quarterbacks. But still, we had some concerns about Lamar Jackson over the past couple of weeks. I mean, his pressure rate has continued to skyrocket over the last 3 weeks, 42%, 43%, 51% in that week 4 game against the Chiefs. And also looking at how the results from Lamar as a passer, they've been solid, but I would say that's maybe hindsight being 2020. It's been somewhat volatile. He's averaged over 9 air yards per attempt in 3 of his 4 games. It wasn't until week 4 where he was starting to work the short area parts of the field. So this has been something where, I mean, the passing game has worked, but now having to come up against some of the tougher defenses, a lot of those problems or potential problems have now been laid bare. And now looking at the offensive line moving forward for Cooper Rush, Ronnie Stanley probably going to be out for this game. Tyler Linderbaum, their starting center, has been working through a calf injury. I mean, Cooper Rush having to operate behind that offensive line without any potential for scrambling. I mean, I do have some concerns about how this passing game is going to work. So it's going to be a tough out this week going up against the Texans. Next week, they play up against the Rams. And, that's going to be a dogfight. And while I know Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator, isn't Kyle Shanahan, but I'm still sure that he could whip something up. But you do have, if you are a Ravens fan, you have to at least be somewhat hesitant to say this is going to be the same Super Bowl contending team that you hoped for when we started out at the start of 2025.
Yeah, and it's not just a Lamar injury, like you said, right? It's all the other injuries around it. People will talk about Lamar the most, but man, that defense, before the season, all the additions they had, we thought that defense was going to be a strength, and now it is a huge weakness for them. So I think that's a great call. I'm also going to talk about a quarterback here, and people might be surprised by this one, but Jared Goff can't deliver outdoors. I've been one of the people who has been shouting that from the rooftops. He averages 5 fewer fantasy points per game when he has to go outside versus when he's in the dome. And yet this week, I am going to say, just for this week, that is make believe. And Chris, I'm sorry, but it is because he is going up against that bad Bengals defense. Even though, like Goff this year, 7 touchdowns at home, just 2 touchdowns on the road. But this is the exception because of the matchup. It cancels out all his struggles outdoors. He is a good play this week. I mean, in their last 3 outings, the Bengals made Trevor Lawrence the QB 11, Carson Wentz the QB 13, and Bo Nix the QB 5. I will be shocked if Jared Goff doesn't finish as a top 10 quarterback this year. So Goff can't deliver outdoors. I think that is make-believe, but only for this week. I got to throw that caveat in there. Do you want to address that as a Bengals fan?
Oh, no, and I can't even refute any of that. And the worst part of it all is that I get to experience all of this in person. I know we were talking before the show that I'll be down in Cincinnati today catching the game. So if you happen to see me wearing the sad Bengals fan, like up in the nosebleeds, if you want to buy me a beer, I'd be more than happy to accept it, because I'm going to need something to get me through what's going to be something of a tough watch later this afternoon.
We'll be thinking of you, man. All right, let's get Fitz and Harmon back in here for some bring in the props, and let's see what they got for us.
Oh, that sounds absolutely brutal. Let's bring in the props. Let's help everybody. Hopefully make some good money. I'm not going to lie. I've been doing pretty well on this segment so far this year. Woo! All right, Harmon, what do you got for us? Give me a prop you like.
Oh God, the people are not gonna like to hear this. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear me talk about Ladd McConkey again. But you know what? I'm going back to the well here for Ladd McConkey. I'm taking the over on 59.5 receiving yards. Obviously, he has not come close to this the last few weeks. It was worth noting in week 1, totally normal performance, over 70 yards, totally fine. We talked a little bit about this earlier. I think Boone touched on this, that the matchup for Ladd McConkey is very good. The Chargers are still using him as the primary slot receiver. The Commanders have given up a ton of production to slot receivers so far this year, a lot of explosive plays. they want to be like a man coverage heavy team, but they've had to lean into some zone stuff because of issues on the back end. They give up the second most points per drop back in zone coverage this year, according to Fantasy Points data. And where they particularly struggle is with the communication on the back end, especially when teams use motion during or at the snap. They give up a league high 9.6 yards per attempt on plays with motion during or at the snap. And the Chargers are still trying to set Ladd McConkey up for some of those big plays off of motion. You see it on film. They just haven't gotten there yet to him because of some pass protection issues. I think this week he hits a couple of those. And I mean, maybe he hits for your fantasy team, but I think he definitely gets over 60 yards this week.
Yeah, I also wonder, too, if they're just going to find a way to get the ball out of Herbert's hands quickly. And if they do that, Ladd seems like he would be somebody that can take advantage of that. You mentioned ETN. I'm going to double down on bring the props. And I'm going to say more. Like, you might have to scroll through your app a little bit, but I went through it to find over on 80 yards, which I got at plus 172. I could not believe it was that hefty for over 80 yards. But you mentioned it earlier. This running attack under Liam Cohen is absolutely reborn, right? Offensive linemen have talked about it. It has a lot to do with the fact that he changes things up on the line, and it's working for them. Last year, Tampa Bay's run offense had gone from worst to fourth in the league with Liam Cohen as the head coach. This year, the Jags are having a very similar resurgence. They're averaging 42 yards more per game with basically the same people up there. They got 139 or more yards in 3 of their 4 games. ETN's averaging 6.1 yards a carry. He's third in the league with 394 yards rushing. That's a bunch of stats to tell you that the Jags are going to run the damn football. And I think in this matchup, they can run the damn football. So 80 felt to me like a good number. Like to scroll through and get a plus 172 on 80 yards rushing, I went heavy into that. So I feel really good about that particular line. And I love the fact that Harmon didn't know I was going to go there, but earlier in the show, he was giving me all the extra data too. So we are team ETN, team Jags running the football. Let's bring everybody together for some bold predictions. It's time to just lay it out there. All right, we'll start with Chris. Chris, give me something bold. Give me something daring. Give me something drastic. What's on your mind?
Drastic. Okay, I don't know if it's going to be drastic, but I will say that Marvin Harrison being in the top 10 after week 5, that might feel a little drastic, especially after last week, because I know that a lot of folks, once a receiver, which like whomever, their skill player gets into the end zone, we always try and look for the celebration afterwards. I've never seen a player so relieved to catch a touchdown last week, and that was Marvin Harrison, just because of the amount of him and Kyler Murray being so out of sync to start this season. And Harmon and I, we've talked about on the recap shows beforehand, a lot of the way that Drew Petzing is using him are the ways that we've wanted to. More slot targets for him, a greater air share, more screens, like all of those things that you would want, the easy layup targets for a guy like Marvin Harrison, just hasn't come to fruition. But in this matchup against the Tennessee Titans, allowing the 5th most PPR points per game to wide receivers, we should be able to see that. And going back over some of the wide receivers that have gotten over on the Titans so far, going all the way back to week 1, it was Cortland Sutton with 61 yards and a touchdown with him. Devontae Adams dunked on him for over 100 yards and a touch. Michael Pittman got them for a score. Nico Collins that beat them on the perimeter. Those are the archetypes of wide receivers that Marvin Harrison, the way he's been used so far, aligns with some of that usage. Can he be used on the inside and slashing across the field like Michael Pittman? Yes, he can do that. Can he be used as a boundary perimeter type receiver? Yes, he can do that. We've seen him use it like that back in 2024. So going up against the Titans defense, I'm not too concerned about how he, from a defensive matchup, how he can perform. So I'd say Marvin Harrison, top 10. Drastic, maybe not, but it still has the potential for week 5.
Boone, give me your bold prediction for week 5.
I mean, you see me over here throughout the show, like tweaking things, trying to work on the rankings in between segments. A guy that I keep trying to move up this week is Cam Scatterbo. I'm going to say he finishes as a top 5 fantasy running back this week. And everybody thinks Malik Neighbors' injury, it's the end of the world. And yeah, for the entire season, it brings down the ceiling for this offense. But this week, they get the Saints. It's going to be a nice distraction. New Orleans allowed 121 points through 4 games so far. They've been very generous to fantasy running backs. James Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker, they've all finished inside the top 10. And go back to week 1, James Conner, Trey Benson, you combine those two, they would have been a top 5 fantasy back against this defense. And Cam Scatterbo is getting all of the work in that backfield. He is going to come through with a top 5 performance this week.
Harmon, bold prediction?
Yeah, I don't know if this is drastic because, you know what, it's happened 3 of the 4 weeks so far, but I see A.J. Brown going under 40 yards receiving once again this week. A lot of factors at play here. We know it's a big talking point about what's going on with A.J. Brown. Why aren't they throwing him the football? Well, I just don't think A.J. Brown's playing up to the same level that he used to be. I don't see the same separation. I don't see the same explosiveness out of his cuts. And then that's not even to touch on the fact that there is the Jalen Hurts aspect of it all. There's the Kevin Patullo aspect of it all. Is the play calling where it needs to be? And this is a tough matchup against a Denver Broncos defense that is going to play a lot of heavy man coverage and likely shadow A.J. Brown with Patrick Surtain, which already makes it difficult enough. But even more problematic, Hurts doesn't push the football when he gets pressure. He wants to find those outlet options and just keep the offense moving. This Denver Broncos team puts a ton of heat on quarterbacks. The offensive line has been a little disappointing in Philly this year. So to me, I just see another slow week for A.J. Brown where we're talking about what's going on. And there's a lot of factors at play in that, and it's not just a simple conversation.
All right, we won't be slow here. We'll be fast. Hurry up, offense. Let's bring everybody together as we finish up for the show. We'll bring in some of your big questions. We got a ton in the YouTube chat, so I'm going to try and get to some of those. Francisco, that's fun to say. Jameson Williams or Trayvon Henderson? What say you, Chris?
I'll go Jameson Williams here, and I think I've made the comment before that Jameson Williams is fancy MVS, which how he's used down the field, but at least last week he did see that uptick in targets. And of course, going up against my Cincinnati Bengals defense that's been above average in explosive play rate allowed to wide receivers. If there's going to be a week to start Jameson Williams, it has to be this week against Cincinnati.
Boone, you get the next one, and it's from AV21, son. Full PPR pick 3, Pittman, Allen, Myers, Sutton. What do you got?
Ooh, that is a tough one. We're going Pittman, we're going Myers, and we're going Allen here. Sutton with the tough matchup. He's the guy that falls out, but that's a pretty good receiver room to have. So congrats on that for the year.
All right, we'll move to the next one. We're going fast. YouTube question comes from Hits Him Up. Tyjae Spears or Kareem Hunt? Hits Him Up. What do you think, Harmon?
Jeez, God, who cares? I guess I will go with Kareem Hunt and chase a goal line touchdown. Yeah, well, I know you care, buddy, and I'm sorry that it's come to this. I know injuries, buys, it's a tough one out there, but I'll go Kareem Hunt, chase that touchdown. We just have no idea what Tyjae Spears' usage is going to be like in the first game off of a serious injury. Tony Pollard's been at least reliable, so go with Hunt.
What we do know is that we'll be back here Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, to help you get your lineup set. We are here every single weekend. We're around all week, too. You can wake up with Yahoo Sports Daily, Monday through Friday. That's me and Caroline Fenton hanging out from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And catch the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast live on Yahoo Fantasy YouTube. You can also watch this yahoosports.tv and wherever you get your free TV networks. We are all over the place. We appreciate you hanging out. Good luck in your fantasy matchups. We hope we see you next week. Go out there and kick your enemies' butts all week long.